Hello, everybody. Hope everybody's doing a-okay. I personally equate the Sanji versus Zoro debates to the same kind of dynamic slash phenomenon that we used to have when Naruto was going on with the shipping wars, Narusaku versus Naruhina kind of thing, in the sense that, it's a very sensitive topic. People are very passionate about it, and you would have like these very long, never ending back and forths. But also because the author knew exactly what to put down on the page to fuel the debates. So every so often, Kishimoto would drop a Naruto and Hinata moment. And then he would follow it up with a Naruto and Sakura moment. So it was this endless back and forth until the end of the series, until chapter 700. And so this chapter really took me back to those times because during the week, you get these spoilers with very little context, right? These bullet points, just sentences, listed. And one of those sentences read, Sanji versus King. And it was like somebody had written, Sakura hugs Naruto, or Hinata hugs Naruto. Pages upon pages of people either celebrating that sentence, people trying to dissect that sentence, people making assumptions over that one sentence. So it's really just the same energy, really. It's just been rearranged into something new, but it's the same kind of dynamic. And Oda knows exactly what to write down, what to draw to make these conversations happen. Cover page shows Pound doing the butterfly stroke, trying to escape being shot at by the Marines. It's kind of like the opposite of what happens during the Alabasta goodbye with Vivi, where Vivi decides to stay behind, and then the Straw Hats, like, in order to say goodbye to their friend, they have to just sort of stay there a little bit longer, despite being shot at by Marines. In this case, Lola and Chiffon, they're like, we're out. And then Pound has to be the one to follow them. And this is just a natural consequence of the gag that Oda decided to pull with Chiffon and Lola not recognizing Pound and leaving him behind. If you remember in one of the previous videos, I said that gag was going to inevitably prolong this storyline because it's not like Pound was suddenly going to give up trying to reunite with his daughters. So I would really want for this to be the beginning of the reconciliation process between Pound and his daughters. And that way, this plotline can reach a resolution.
Now, we already knew that the skull of Onigashima was massive, but just to add more scale to it, apparently there are some cliffs at the top as well, and one of those cliffs has a door that leads in and out of the dome. So Jack uses that door to get to the rooftop, and one of his men actually has a gorilla for a body. I thought that was funny. And then behind Jack is one of the numbers, number 7. And so he follows the same pattern as the other numbers where his laugh corresponds to his number in Japanese, in this case 7. And pretty much the design of this number, from his spiky club to his loincloth, is essentially the classic depiction of an Oni from Japanese folklore. Very simple looking, very dumb looking. He fits the mold perfectly.
That number, though, is almost as big as the door. You see his giant silhouette, his hand push the door open, and they're almost the same size, him and the door. I really like the fact that Jack acknowledges that it's their fault that the Scabbards were able to get as close to Kaido as they did. I like that. I like that he's owning up to it. That was our bad, but it's never going to happen again. There's a brief callback to Zou from Inuarashi saying that Jack disturbed 1,000 years of peace in that city. And I like that because it's a quick reminder that Zou has a history that spans way before the Void Century. And then we get a little bit of a death flag foreshadowing kind of thing with Raizo when he says that the Minks saved his life and that he intends on repaying that debt.
Rhodey or Roddy the Bull and Blackback the Gorilla appear to block Jack's way, because we know that they're both guardians, which means that they serve under Nekomamushi, and they begin to transform into Sulong form to take on Jack and his men. And then we get a shot of the 3 musketeers, Giovanni, Sicilian, and Consolat, the fox. And the musketeers are the Minks that serve under Inuarashi. So the musketeers work under the dog, and the guardians work under the cat. That's one of the cool things about Carrot, is that even though she's technically a musketeer, and therefore technically serves under Inuarashi, she was actually trained as a guardian because she was trained by Pedro, and Pedro was a guardian. So Carrot is a mink who has a bit of both guardian and musketeer in her. Best of both worlds. Now, something that I found shocking is that we don't really get to see any full transformations in this chapter because we cut away from the scene early. So we just begin to see the minks glowing, and then it cuts off in the middle of their transformation process. And you can tell because a lot of their Sulong features aren't really like fully defined yet. So Oda wanted to save that for another chapter. It's kind of funny too because Kaido is pretty much a statue throughout this entire scene. Like, aside from his dialogue in the beginning, he doesn't really move at all. He just kind of stands there like a pretty tall, menacing lamp.
This is Kaido throughout the entire chapter. So the Minks and the Beast Pirates start clashing at the top of Onigashima, and there's a shot of Big Mom looking up, and you see the ceiling tremble. And I feel like it's only a matter of time before the whole ceiling caves in. Like with Kaido fighting there, it's only a matter of time before the entire thing collapses. And do you guys think that the Sulong Minks that are up against Jack, do you think that they are enough to push Jack into hybrid form? Because what you're doing is like, you're essentially like dividing up the Minks, right? One group goes against Jack, and then the other will, Neko Mamushi and Inuarashi, they go up against Kaido along with the Scabbard. So, that's you're splitting up your forces there. So I wonder if the group that is going up against Jack will be enough to push him into hybrid form.
One of the things that I did question about this chapter the first time I read it was how was Shinobu and Sanji able to get as close to Momonosuke as they did in this chapter with both King and Queen being there? At first I was like, what is going on with these top Yonko commanders observation hockey? But then I thought about it a little bit more and was like, okay, yeah, it kind of does make sense that it was Shinobu and Sanji who managed to sneak up as close as they did. Because both of them are supposed to be very stealthy. Shinobu is a ninja, so she should be trained in stealth. And then Sanji is stealth black. Now, the thing about Sanji's invisibility is that if you notice, Queen makes a comment that to me was kind of strange because it almost seems like Queen believes that Momonosuke is flying or floating by himself. And I'm like, can Queen not sense that Sanji is there? Like, do you guys think that the invisibility feature of Sanji's raid suit is capable of bypassing, of actually hiding his presence from observation hockey?
It turns out the official translation gives us an answer to this question. I'm just going to read you the panel. It's in the page where King is flying downward with Sanji. So Sanji says, a hole in the stomach could kill someone. And then King says, not just a hole, I'll split you in two. So, he's saying that he's going to cut him in half, which I hope that's a wink to him fighting Zoro later on. Cut in half, that's what Zoro does. He cuts people. And so King says, let's see if you can vanish and escape that. And then Sanji replies, the invisibility is just a visual thing. So that's what the official translation says. The invisibility feature is just a visual thing. And if I recall correctly, in the episode when he's fighting Page 1, it's explained that the way it works is more like a chameleon, right? It's like a camouflage effect where the suit blends into its surroundings as opposed to like him becoming invisible. It's more like he's just adapting the texture of like his exterior with what's around him. So unfortunately, the raid suit does not hide Sanji's presence fully. I mean, it hides him visually, but it doesn't hide his presence from hockey users. So again, I bring up the question, like, I think King reacted pretty well, being able to know that something was up. So that's why he flew over to get Momonosuke. But Queen was just like, is this kid flying? What's going on? So yeah, I kind of wonder why Queen wasn't able to sense Sanji. That first comment right there is especially funny this week because as it turns out, we do get to see that King has his sword back in this chapter. You see it in the panel where Momonosuke apparently begins to fly and Queen doesn't know what's going on. And in that same panel, we see that Momonosuke is still not over his fear of heights because he says, it's high, I'm scared. And if you remember, I actually explained in another review how the resolution to the character conflict of Momonosuke will be when he finally decides to allow himself to fly as a dragon, right? Be able to overcome that fear of heights. Because one of the reasons why he's scared to fly is because he can fly as a dragon. I mean, he could fly as a dragon, but he doesn't want to because he associates the dragon with Kaido and what Kaido did to his family. So the resolution will come, I think, for his character when he overcomes that fear of heights and he learns or he accepts that he can fly as a dragon. The panel of King grabbing Shinobu and then tossing her over so that she slams her face into a wall was brutal, but it looked awesome. I do not know what that says about me, that I think that looked awesome. Cue the Sanji theme music. Momonosuke's chains burst. All of a sudden, I'm guessing Sanji kicked them to break them that way. And this is where the action starts.
King and Sanji are clashing in midair. They're suspended essentially there. There's one panel where Sanji is using his knee on King's leg. And you see, if you zoom in, you see the black armament hockey clash. You see the little black sparks that comes out of armament hockey. Now here's the thing, all right? Because after that, King goes on to choke Sanji out, to grab him by the neck. So here's my question. If King could overpower Sanji's knee with his kick, then why is he choking him out? Granted, Sanji doesn't appear to be able to push through King's leg either, and it would make sense that King's lower half is weaker than his upper half because he's a swordsman, right? But the whole scene just kind of reminded me a lot of the Jabra situation where Jabra knew that Sanji's legs were pretty strong, so instead he tries to pin him down so that he can find a way of just shooting him to the ground.
And of course Jabra fails because Sanji uses the Jumba to catch Jabra by the face and send him down instead. So I'm kind of thinking of like what possible thing Sanji can do in this situation to avoid getting hurt. Like Luffy said that looked really bad, but we know that, like from a story standpoint, we know that Sanji has to be somewhat okay, or at least not KO'd. The question is more about, okay, what did Sanji do to manage to deal with the attack? And then also, how much damage did King deal to Sanji with that?
Now, I don't know if this is a feature that Sanji can use in this situation, but the cape of his suit can be used as a shield. And we did see that the shield was essentially strong enough to block page 1 in his dinosaur form. Again, not sure if the cape would be strong enough to block King in this situation, and even then it looks like Sanji's already too late to block King's beak, but his suit does have a shield, so maybe Oda can find a way of using that here. And then also I find it pretty smart that the thing that King is aiming for is actually the tower that Zoro sliced open when he first arrived. I guess King figured that structure is already damaged, it's already been cut anyway, so I might as well just aim my attack at that.
I don't know if this is just me, but when King was going downward with Sanji, I actually got the Katakuri theme music playing in my head, like dun 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 shoot. So whatever happens after this, whatever the aftermath of this is, it's gonna serve to either hype King up or hype Sanji up. Although technically speaking, I think like this chapter kind of serves to hype Sanji up already. Because if you think about it, if you look at Sanji's post-time skip opponents, there is a huge gap, a huge leap between not being able to do virtually anything up against Doflamingo to, in this moment, being able to successfully rescue a child from 2 Yonko Commanders. That is a big leap, all right? From not being able to do anything against Dofi to what he does in this chapter. Again, King and Sanji are suspended in air. And if you look at that panel, again, it does not seem like King is able to break through Sanji's kick. Because the next thing we see is like King choking him out, literally grabbing him by the neck. I can already see the comments of people saying, oh, Sanji was only able to do that because of the raid suit. Any way you slice it though, to me, this is a Sanji feat. This is the best he's looked for me since he dodged Katakuri's bullet jellybean in Whole Cake Island, which was also a great feat for Sanji. Now, I don't think that King is his established matchup for the arc just yet, just because Oda loves shifting characters and moving characters around a lot. It would be like saying, I think to say that this is like Sanji's match would be like saying, oh, like Luffy's gonna fight Ulti. You know, he kind of did, but that, you know, evolved into, you know, Ulti moving around and Luffy moving around and stuff. That being said though, at the end of the day, I just want to see some high diff fights. You know, I want the Straw Hats to get a hard fight. I want to see muscles tearing. I want to see bones breaking, all right? I want everybody to give it their all in Wano. Oda has made it very clear over and over again that this is a very special arc, unlike anything we've ever seen before. And so as long as Zoro and Sanji get their high div fight, as long as they're pushed to the brink, like, to me, I'm not really like fixated on who it is they actually fight, as long as they get pushed to the brink. The main reason I've been pushing for Sanji and Zoro to fight Queen and King is because I think that those two characters can get them there. Those two characters, those two top Yonko commanders, can get Sanji and Zoro to go all out, which is something that we desperately need to see. There's a scene where we see Yamato and Ulti fighting in the background, and then Luffy tells Yamato to help Momonosuke and Shinobu, which I like because that's the direct order, right? Like, he's behaving as a captain with her. And this is not the first time that Luffy has done that, given Yamato a direct order. So I like that. I like that there is enough trust for Luffy to do that. Because, he's trusting Yamato with Momonosuke. That's not something to take lightly, especially because Sanji risked his life to save Momonosuke. And then Yamato's like, can I? And then Luffy's like, what do you mean, can I? And then, Yamato's like, oh, that's right. He's technically my son. So it's the whole, like, I'm O-Lin kind of thing. Again, everything I've seen, everything I've read thus far about Yamato makes me think that it has nothing to do with her wanting to be a male. It's more about, oh, that's my idol, and I'm him, and therefore, yes, Momonosuke, you are my son. And even then, she actually questions that in this chapter, because she's like, can I? So she's not entirely sold on the idea either. Or maybe she just thinks that she's not worthy of protecting Odin's son, right? Maybe she's just too much of a fangirl to be like, oh, no, like, this is my idol son. I don't want to, can I, could I, should I don't know. So yeah, it was kind of funny. And then I kind of wonder if she goes and protects Shinobu and Momonosuke, like, Ulti's not going to give up pursuing Yamato. So I wonder if that's going to be a hindrance to Yamato if Ulti decides to continue to pursue her and fight Yamato.
Apparently, Big Mom can also use Prometheus to fly, and I think this is new information. I didn't know that she could ride fire like that, but I guess it makes sense, because Prometheus is part of her soul energy. So she swings at Luffy, and one of the things that gets brought up is that she views Luffy as somebody who ruins her parties and spoils her fun. Which makes no sense, because as we know, Luffy is one of the funnest characters there is, and he loves a good party. And Big Mom's goal is that she wants to bring together all of the races of the world so that she can have tea parties with them and stuff. And so if we consider that, in addition to what Kaido said in the last chapter about how he was betrayed because he wasn't strong enough, from a story standpoint, it's kind of Luffy's responsibility as a main character to teach both Big Mom and Kaido that they are wrong. So what I'm saying is that there has to be a moment where Luffy proves to Big Mom that he knows how to have fun and enjoy a good party. And there also has to be a scene in the future where Luffy shows Kaido that Luffy does not betray people. Kind of like to change their minds. Similar to what happened with Don Qingjiao in Dressrosa, where Don Qingjiao was blaming Luffy about what Garp did to him about damaging his head so he could no longer access his treasure. And so as the main character, Luffy changed that by giving Don Qingjiao his pointy head back. Anyway, Big Mom uses her Spear of Elbaf technique, Ikoku Sovereignty. Ikoku means mighty nation, so it's mighty nation sovereignty, which again is very reminiscent of the technique that we saw Dory and Bragi use back in Little Garden, but their technique was named Hakoku Sovereignty. Hakoku means warrior nation, so pretty much an identical attack with a different name. Now, what I like about the way the attack is shown, though, is that it blows a hole through the side of Onigashima, and then it keeps going onto the water. And so, like, the visual representation of the range of the attack that we get in this chapter is the exact same representation that we got back in Whole Island.
We get a justification for why Luffy doesn't go up to the roof just yet, and I kind of like it. I appreciate that Oda put thought into Luffy's justification, because essentially Luffy says that he doesn't go up to where Kaido is right now, because if he does that, then Big Mom will follow him, and that will lead Big Mom over to where the scabbards are, and that will cause more problems for them. So it's a good justification that goes in line with Luffy's character because, he's being very noble. It's not about like he doesn't want to get to the roof. It's more like I can't because if I do, then Big Mom will follow me and that will create more problems for my friends. I kind of like how Big Mom calls Nami the cat burglar because I sometimes forget that that's what Nami used to do a lot, right? She would steal. And so now she's stealing from a Yonko. She's stealing the soul of a Yonko in a way. She's stealing Zeus.
I don't usually catch myself laughing out loud when I'm reading something, but that panel of Frankie running his Black Rhino motorcycle into Big Mom's face did do it for me. Like, my first instinct was to laugh because the thing is just so random. The way those two came out of nowhere was just so unexpected and surprising. Now, I do want to comment on the song that Frankie is sort of referencing here. Because in real life, there's actually a song called Freedom Rider. It's by a band called Traffic, and there's actually a verse in that song that just so happens to fit this final page perfectly. So this is how the ending of the song goes. It says, "When lightning strikes you to the bone, you turn around, you're all alone. By the time you hear the siren sound, then your soul is in the lost and found." So that part of the song goes perfectly with what Brook pulls here, which is essentially the same thing that he pulled back in Whole Cake, cutting Zeus in half. Hanauta Sancho, Yahatsugiri.
Now, before Brook cuts Zeus, he does activate something called Soul Sensor. He says, activate Soul Sensor. And he didn't do that last time when he sliced Zeus. So I already read a little bit of speculation. It was like a mini theory that I thought was actually very good, saying that perhaps because Brook's Devil Fruit has to do with soul energy, that maybe this cut is different and that it actually is going to end up dividing Zeus permanently, splitting Zeus in half, all right? So that one half can go with Big Mom and the other half can go back with Nami, but permanently. The official translation adds more insult to injury because by the end of the chapter, Frankie actually says, "Did I just run over something?" It's like, yeah, a freaking Yonko.
Now, I do have to say that even though I found the ending funny at first, the Big Mom disrespect has been tremendous. I mean, she is by far the most disrespected Yonko in the series. And this chapter didn't help that. Now, I understand that Frankie's inventions are not a joke, right? I'm not complaining about that, In fact, just a couple of chapters ago, Usopp was telling Chopper to have faith in Frankie's creations, right? And that makes sense if you think about it, because Frankie was sent to Vegapunk's lab during the time skip. So he knows a whole bunch of things. He knows how to build very formidable things. His Brachio tank, for example, was capable of withstanding a direct hit from Big Mom. So all of that was foreshadowing for this moment. Because again, the things that Frankie builds are not a joke by any means. In fact, he might even be the one who by the final arc has to rebuild Pluton, an ancient weapon. So that's going to be some very heavy lifting, okay? So I'm not taking away Frankie's merit at all. This is not about Frankie. This is about Oda writing Big Mom as a gag character over and over again. This is why some people call Big Mom Big Meme. Now, personally, I don't think she's a walking meme just yet, but this is some dangerous territory. Now, if she gets back up next chapter and she is back to normal, then everything is fine. It's cool. No big deal. But my biggest fear is that her getting knocked over the head like this could cause the return of the Amnesia plotline. So if that happens and she's back to being O-Lin, it's going to feel super contrived, super convenient for the story. So hopefully that does not happen. And if it does, there's still like a silver lining, and that's Spero, right? Because Spero is on his way, so maybe he can remind Big Mom of who she is. And so maybe that way her memory loss doesn't last too long. But who knows, because back in Udon we saw that all it took was Queen headbutting Big Mom for her to get her memories back. So I'm hoping for the best, but I would not be surprised if Frankie hitting Big Mom this way causes her to forget who she is again.
So I do think it's important to remember that Big Mom isn't this impenetrable, untouchable fortress that she was built up to be in Whole Cake Island. Because I remember like Capone referring to Big Mom as, she's this iron balloon that nobody can touch, right? Unless we create a situation where she has severe emotional distress and break the caramel photo, nobody can deal damage to her. But we've seen examples of that not being the case. For example, Jinbei was able to punch her out of the sunny using Fishman Karate. Then again, Fishman Karate kind of bypasses her exterior defenses because Fishman Karate uses the water inside of the opponent's body against them. So, I guess that's a justification. But like I've said, we've actually seen Queen have an effect. His attack had an effect on her brain because she regained her memories because of Queen's attack. So he must have been able to, bypass some of her defenses there as well, right? So it's not like she's like this untouchable iron balloon as she first was built up to be. And it's kind of like the same thing with Kaido too. Like, Kaido was hyped up. And that's the thing, as a writer, you kind of want to hype up your villains, right? To get people excited and stuff, get people intrigued. But we saw that, the Scabbards were able to, injure Kaido as well. Not like severely, right? Not like deal some like long lasting severe damage, but they did break through. So I feel like we're just getting to the normal stage of the arc where if the bosses are incapable of being damaged, then how is the main character going to defeat them? So I'm more concerned about the Amnesia thing than I am over that, because the Amnesia it would just feel very contrived and convenient. Then again, Oda doesn't do the same thing twice, so I wonder how, if he's gonna bring the Amnesia thing back, I wonder how he's gonna handle it. Maybe it turns into a game of like stopping Perospero from getting to Big Mom, and then Carrot has to fight Perospero to block his way or something. Maybe the Straw Hats work as a team. I don't know. I don't know what Chopper is going to do in this situation because O-Lin recognizes Chopper as her friend. So I don't know, but I guess we'll find out. And I know there's no chapter next week, and I know people don't like that, but to me, like, I have a different perspective because I kind of view it as like the more breaks we have, the longer it'll take for One Piece to actually finish and end. So, more time to enjoy the journey with those 1 week breaks. I want to end this talking about a character moment that happened in this chapter, because I kind of did the same thing a while back for Usopp, and it was a very, very small scene, just like one panel where we learned that Usopp decided to come back, inside of the Brachio tank, even though they were running away, right? Usopp decided to come back because he heard that Momonosuke was going to be executed. And in this chapter, we get a similar moment with Sanji that is easy to overlook, right? And I'm talking about the moment where Nami looks up and she says, Sanji, like, I thought you were off chasing women. So just like Usopp was running away, Sanji was busy, trying to chase women, but they both decide to come back. And then after Sanji rescues Momonosuke, he gives Momonosuke a big thumbs up and he says, I'm proud of you, kid. Way to drop your name back there like a man. Which means that Sanji witnessed Momonosuke saying, my name is Kozuki Momonosuke, and one day I will become the Shogun of Wano. And then everybody laughed at him. But the reason this is relevant for Sanji's character is because Sanji himself does not accept his own heritage, right? Momonosuke was like, I'm Kozuki Momonosuke. This is who I am. This is where I come from. But the conflict, the internal conflict, and the resolution to Sanji's character arc, and I've said this before, I made a video talking about this, will come from him accepting the fact that his bloodline is of Germa and that he's of Innsmouth. That doesn't mean that he does the things that they do or that he agrees with what they do, but that's a part of him. That's something that he lived. That's something that was a big part of his life. And yes, he has the Baratie part of him as well, right? That's also a huge part of his personality, but there is so much resistance from Sanji. Like if you remember during the raid suit episode, Law is saying, oh, that's Stealth Black, that's Germa. And Sanji's like, no, don't ever call me that. Don't call me Germa. And then he's like, I'm Osoba Mask. And then Usopp and Frankie are like, that's lame. So he has a problem with that name. So I feel like that has to be part of the resolution to Sanji's character. And I've said this before, Sanji will not be able to unleash his full power until he actually takes on the Germa mantle. And he's like, okay, this is who I am. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to be my father or my brothers. I can be a much better person and I'm just going to go all out. But I embrace that part of me as well. You take the good and you delete the bad. I think that's what Sanji needs to do as a character. So I really liked the fact that he praised Momonosuke for it, because in a way I think he would like to be able to do that himself. So it was a really good character moment for Sanji. That's it for me. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you'd like to, you can follow me on Instagram. I'm very popular there, as you can tell. Sanji versus King, Frankie and Brooke showing up to run over Big Mom was totally unexpected. That's kind of the thing that I appreciate a lot about Oda, is that within the confines of the normal arc structure, right, that he has to follow, he kind of like likes to surprise us at points. And so this was an example of that. So I liked it. Let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you so much again. I think I said that already. Like the video if you did, and subscribe if you haven't already. Take care. Bye.